y'all. Thank you for joining us for our latest episode of Prep Rally, a podcast focused on Catholic high schools here in the Diocese of Phoenix. My name is Abigail Standish, and I am your Prep Rally host, and I'm super excited to be here with y'all today. Before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to Catholic Education Arizona. Thank you so much for sponsoring this podcast, this episode. Thank you for all the amazing work you do in our state to make sure that we have Catholic education, to make sure that it's accessible to others. So on today's episode, I'm really excited about this one. So we have 3 guests here who are going to talk to us about artificial intelligence. So we have Mrs. Gina Iker from Xavier. We have Dr. Anthony Garibay from our Diocesan Catholic Schools office, and we have Dr. Carrie Shanahan from Bourgade. Welcome, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So let's kind of start off with going around, introducing yourselves. Tell us what you do at your schools or your office, and a fun fact about yourself. That's always one of my favorite parts. So Anthony, let's start with you.
Sure. I'm Anthony Garibay. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Catholic Schools. I work primarily with our high schools, but I do mentor a few of our elementary school principals. And fun fact, so I navigate between the higher ed world and pre-K-12 in a variety of capacities, leadership, and teaching. And I love it because, 1, I'm a nerd, and 2, it keeps me up to date on what's going on in both worlds, particularly at this topic, AI, and how both worlds are navigating the pros and cons of it. So
nice. Yeah. So if you had to choose like one grade to teach, since you're kind of since you are at the diocesan offices, if you had to choose one grade to teach, what would you pick?
That's a good
You're
question.
Like none of them? Just kidding.
I actually really like the work that I teach at DePaul University in Chicago online, and the work I do there is with emerging school leaders, so at the higher ed level and at the elementary school level, specifically Catholic schools. And so that work is really rewarding because we're helping to mold and shape the next generation of school leaders.
That's
and
beautiful.
The impact that they're going to make on our society, our students. The possibilities are endless. So that work just energizes me. I love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gina, you next.
Yes, I'm Gina Iker, and I teach theology at Xavier. I've been there, this is my 23rd year, I believe. And I am a product of the Diocese of Phoenix Catholic Schools. I went to St. Thomas the Apostle and to Xavier. Was that a fun enough fact? I'm married and I've got 7 boys.
That's a very fun fact. 7 boys. So do you have any daughters or it's just sons?
I have 150 daughters every year.
That's beautiful. That was really cute.
Over 5,000 now. How's that?
So how old is your oldest son and how old is the youngest?
The oldest is 19, John Paul, and my youngest, Padraig, is 8. He just turned 8.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie.
I'm Carrie Shanahan, and I'm the assistant principal at Bourgade Catholic. And I've been there, I've been assistant principal for about 3 years. I've been there about 13 years. Best kids in the history of ever. And I do teach a couple classes. I just mentioned that because that's one of the ways that we use AI. And if I were the fun fact that I usually go to is that I have really bad parking karma. Like I have really bad parking karma, but I have excellent taxi cab karma. I could be in any country, don't have to speak the language. It could be in the middle of the night, middle of a rainstorm, and I can find a cab. So
wow,
just thought I'd share that.
That's a really good skill to have. Does it? Now I'm still kind of new to Phoenix. Does that cab-like skill come to use in Phoenix, or is it more when you're traveling?
It's more when you're traveling.
Okay.
Phoenix, not so much with the cabs. And I haven't really had a chance to use my special magical powers lately, but I'm wondering if with, Uber and Waymo and stuff, my skill is no longer relevant to society.
I think maybe if you went to New York, New York City. I've never been, so maybe I'm stereotyping New York City, but I feel like there's tons of cabs,
That's
like everywhere. Okay, yeah.
And I went to college in Washington, D.C., and, Cab City, so that's where I perfected my skills.
There you go. I love that. I hope I can learn from you in that field one day. Thank you for being here, Carrie.
You bet.
So Anthony, we're going to go back to you. Can you kind of give us just an overview of AI, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and so on? I know that's a huge question because you could probably go on for way more time than we have about AI, but kind of just like a general information our viewers should know about it.
Sure, absolutely. AI has become a fantastic tool that can be used at a variety of levels and a variety of capacities, from the student level to the educator level, even the administrator level. I mean, it allows, it articulates possibilities that sometimes we don't know, right? Like, so I'll give you some examples. I've seen teachers use it like, hey, AI, can you help me develop a good bell ringer for this class, and the topic is this, and it'll come up with a couple of different ideas. I've used it specifically for helping to formulate some letters, like some communication pieces that will go out. Also, some ideas with regards to professional development. So that's been invaluable. So in terms of it being a tool, an idea, a machine to help ideate is also really great. Not only in theory, but actually visual, so you can get ideas, have it generate pictures and things like that. I had a professor at the higher ed level who used AI to in the English course. So they had a descriptive writing assignment, and so they had the assignment that they wrote out, and then she had them use AI to put their paper in it and to generate the image that they were describing.
That's a nice idea.
So it actually worked out really well. Now, some not so fun things about AI is, definitely lead them not into temptation, right? It can lead to some academic integrity issues, right? If not properly guided. So, and that's at many levels, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that that students and everyone else are using it ethically, and using it as a tool. It's not the end all be all. Another concern that or challenge that AI can pose is that it sometimes it will eliminate that thought partnering process that you can have with other folks, right? And so one can get really used to like, oh, I need an idea. Rather than talking to my colleague, I'll just type it in ChatGPT, do your thing, and then prompt it properly. There still is something for that human interaction, right? That we get for getting the ideas and just thought partnering with someone. So there's a risk there of that being eliminated and an over reliance on AI for those different reasons. So.
I like how you bring up this balance of, I asked you the good and the bad, but I like how you bring up how it's all about the balance. There is so much good can come out of it if we teach it properly and we utilize it properly. Like to create an image we would otherwise not be able to create, but not to take away from like our humanity and not to take away from collaboration or the necessity and the beauty of being able to learn and to grow our minds as well. So there's like a lot of like balance in that, which with most things, there's, a balance of bringing together the good to make it good, right, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So how are you seeing our Catholic schools and maybe even other schools in Arizona using AI?
Well, I've seen some really creative ideas. One is we've had administrators who are using it. I'll characterize this as administrative efficiency. So we have a couple different tools of AI that we can use. For example, Copilot, that's integrated into a Microsoft 360. So you can actually use Copilot to help you monitor your emails. So I think emails sometimes are the bane of an administrator and teacher's existence because they just constantly come in.
Yeah.
So you can use Copilot to designate, summarize your emails by the hour or however you want to do that. You could filter that, and you can identify which emails are from who are considered really important, and then those are the ones that go to the top, and so on and so forth. So it becomes like you're a little administrative assistant, right? And helps you to organize. Also helps you it can help with data analysis. Now there's a concern there too, because the information you put in, right, you want to make sure that you're using a protected version of AI and not something that's open to the public, otherwise and data gets put out there into the real world. The other part would be I've seen instructors use it to help them to develop ideas on how to approach, for example, how to differentiate instruction on particular topic, right? So you might have diverse learners in a classroom. So how can I approach a topic of, let's say, theology? I'm not to steal your thunder, but let's say you're teaching an Old Testament course, right? Like, oh, this is a topic, like we're talking about Genesis. And so how am I going to teach or talk about Genesis to a room that has just different levels of learning within it? You know, if you prompt AI to be able to, here's a scenario, how can I do this? It will give you some ideas. So that's been tremendously helpful for some. And I've seen some schools use it to help tutor. So you can, it can be used as a tool as well. It can also help to translate. I've seen administrators translate their letters, communication pieces out to specific dialects.
That's cool.
Again, it depends on how well you prompt AI to get the result.
That's cool to see how like it can make a classroom more inclusive, or like an education setting more inclusive in a way. Just like, I mean, if you don't speak a language, you don't speak a language. So like how you can use it to do that. So thank you for all of that. Okay, Gina, as a theology teacher at Xavier, how is AI playing a role in your classroom?
Well, in my classroom in particular, I think we have a program, Flint Tutor, that we use where the students can prepare, brainstorm, review, different things like that. So I've had them use it to, they read an essay about St. Joseph types. We watched the film Bella in class, and then they identify Jose as a Joseph type, and then compare him to St. Joseph, of course, in Scripture, but also tradition, and then also another Joseph character that they'll come up with. So that's the hard part a lot of times for them. Like, who, I don't know. They don't remember anything they've ever read or any, and I'm like, literally any father figure will work. And so sometimes the robot oracles can help them to remember literary, Geppetto. So Geppetto, played a part in making Pinocchio, but is a father to him, adopts him in that way, so it works out. And they just find any point of comparison, but brainstorming, stuff like that. But then also when we get to like moral theology, sort of synthesizing, it kind of cuts back on the research. If I don't want to do a whole research project, just what is the difference morally between the use of periodic continence and contraceptives? Like, what is the church's position? And we can tell the robots to answer according to the church. And there is, a fear that the AI takes from the whole internet. So there's all kinds of bias out there that is still technically Catholic, but not really in line with the teaching or whatever. So there's already a spectrum of Orthodox, I guess. So it's good. It can summarize, synthesize without all the time it would take if that's not what we want to develop here. And then proofreading too also. So they've written their Joseph essay, shove it through the robots to suggest, sentence structure, spelling, whatever else, a little more nuanced than just spell check.
Yeah, that's cool. So you were kind of talking about how in your classroom you even use it for like different theological matters, like learning about different things that the church teaches and such. So is there anything kind of from your theological point of view as being a teacher in a theology classroom about AI that you think would be important for our readers to know? Or readers? I think I was thinking about how you were talking about how the students were reading, and it just went through my brain. Our viewers, unless somebody's reading a transcript of this, then you are a reader, that our viewers might need to know or should know.
Well, I think students are always going to try to find shortcuts, and whether we consider it cheating or not, I don't know. I mean, we've all been told when we were younger, you have to memorize your times tables because you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket for the rest of your life. Well, turns out I've got the whole internet on my watch. So instead of just banning any kind of technology and saying, no, you have to do it the way that it's been classically done, which there's value there, but get out ahead of it and say, how can we use it and also retain these skills? We want you to be able to write an essay, but we also want you to be able to craft a good prompt for AI, and because they're going to be using it, and they already are. We can't ignore that. So obviously there's some moral issues and academic integrity issues there, but if we can allow them to use it, encourage them to use it in the way that's good, I guess. And I think one other thing that was useful is to somebody suggested we can have their tutor respond like a pirate, or they can take on accents just to make it more fun. I'm like, well, how about specifically the wisdom of John Paul II? Like, how would he particularly, like in his, and I was pretty amazed at how it can kind of capture the personality or whatever.
Really?
Or if St. Paul was writing a letter to the Diocese of Phoenix, what would he address? And
Wow.
you got to monkey with the
That's really
prompt a little bit. But
Yeah, I
you
never would have thought of using it that way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Like, we don't need pirates in here, but we'll get some saints in here. I was a little skeptical, like, is it's just going to be generic
Of course, yeah.
Christian stuff? But it was pretty nuanced. It was pretty good.
Yeah, that's
like
cool.
St. Paul did rebuke us, the Diocese of Phoenix, but then offered his prayers for us. It felt like Paul.
Yeah.
Good.
It's cool to see how, like, from an education point of view, especially, like, it simply is a fact that there's AI in the world. So if we can help our students learn how to do it properly, then, like, that is such a huge advantage that we have, because, I mean, they're going to have access. They have access to AI right now. And so because of that, like, if we help them kind of get behind, like, this is how it should be used, this is how it shouldn't be used, and, like, they're already going out of high school, into college, into the workforce, wherever they leave high school from, with this, like, or even grade school, depending on what level we're teaching it at, with this, like, understanding of, like, okay, like, I know how I should and how I want to use this, and, like, I feel confident going into the world to do that kind of thing.
And we don't, like you were saying, want to use it to replace human interaction. So maybe have the robots come up with speaking points in a debate about NFP versus contraception, and then actually have the debate.
Yeah.
Or not actually have the debate, but there's an opportunity for human interaction instead of replacing it.
In, like, addition to kind of elevate it or something like that. That's awesome. Okay, Carrie, so I kind of want to talk specifically about, like, Bourgade and how is AI being used at Bourgade?
So a lot of the things that Anthony and Gina are saying, certainly administrators use it, as you say, to kind of streamline the emails and things like that. I'm not quite that clever myself, but
Anthony can help.
That's a huge help. The kids will use it for pretty much everything under the sun. And I'm just dabbling in it, but one of the things that occurs to me is it's really important to craft a good prompt, and it's really important to be judicious about when it's helpful to use and when it's just silly to use. For example, I got a new iPhone and it's got, it's ready for artificial intelligence. So it's summarizing my texts. Well, isn't the point of a text that it's short enough for me to read anyway? I don't
That's
really,
a fair
don't
point.
really need it to be summarized. Thank you for that extra step, but I don't need that. So I think being judicious about when we want it. So we use, you were saying that you guys use Flint, we use school AI, so it's just another, closed system. One of the things I really appreciate about that is that I can, assign different little chatbots that are experts in different areas for kids. So some of my wonderful senior children who are struggling with math just will not go ask questions. They just will not go ask questions. And they will tell you, it's because I feel stupid. Okay, well, let's just try this, right? Just plug your problem in there. And, I already set it up. Don't tell them the answer. Keep asking them questions about what they know. Keep asking them, how could they figure this out? Don't tell them the answer. And that way the kid has somebody private that they can chat with. And at least they're having a conversation about what's going on. At least it generates for them some of the other things, that they might want to go then to the teacher and ask a specific question about. So it can be helpful, for them for clarifying their thinking. Anytime it's something like really abstract, my AP Gov kids are, kind of wrangling with a handful of Supreme Court cases that they're, landmark cases that they're supposed to know. And AI is really useful for, give them something with a lot of the characteristics of Wisconsin v. Yoder or whatever. So they'll make up something, or Citizens United, they'll make up something that's completely different, but it has a lot of the same elements. It's just another way for the kids to see what they know, review what they know. So that's really helpful. So, in that limited way, it can kind of serve as a thought partner. And I like what you were saying, Gina, about, maybe coming up with some of the talking points for a debate on NFP. And I think that's really where it's helpful. Give me some stuff, and then we'll bring it up out of the computer into the classroom, and we'll have a conversation with each other. So, that's helpful too. And then I just kind of use it for my own brainstorming. Like, this meeting isn't working the way I want it to. What do I need to be saying to these people that's different? You're just kind of again, just have a thought partner.
Yeah, I love that. I especially like how y'all are kind of using it for students who maybe are feeling like, oh, I don't want to sound dumb. I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm scared or worried to go to my teacher or a fellow student to ask questions, because I feel like maybe the argument could be made that that's not helping them learn social skills, but that's not like a new problem. Not that I'm so old, but I didn't have access to AI when I was in high school, and that's something that like I know me and my friends, maybe I should have gone back and asked my English teacher questions. Me and like my friends or just other people I knew were like, yeah, we're kind of nervous to ask these questions in front of the whole classroom or just to even our teacher because we want them to think that we're doing well. But then it's like giving an advantage to kind of learn a little bit more and then maybe take it to your teacher after that, or just have the comfortability of being like, I don't get what's going on at all.
What's my first step?
Like I just need to figure it out before I take it to someone kind of thing. That's awesome.
There are some tools then that as the teacher I can set up to say, okay, so at this point start sending them back. Maybe this is something good for you to go ask. Here's a question I hear you struggling with this. Go ask your teacher about it.
So it can prompt them to then go to
It doesn't work perfectly. It doesn't work perfectly, but that's the goal.
Yeah.
And, again, there are so many really interesting tools out there. I imagine that landscape will continue to change for quite some time. So I hope that piece gets better.
That's awesome. So kind of in implementing these things at Bourgade, especially with like helping students kind of expand their knowledge outside of the classroom, have you seen any big challenges or successes in kind of bringing this to Bourgade?
For me, the most important thing to be mindful of is, what's my prompt going to be? Which goes back to, the constant question, what do I want the kids to know and be able to do? Super important that I'm clear about what I want them thinking about, because then I can help them be clear about it. And then what I find, too, is that also helps with their kids and they're going to try stuff challenge with AI.
Yeah.
They will try to, just let a chatbot create something for them and they'll turn it in. But if I know what I want the kids to know and be able to do, then in theory, it's like what you were saying about, they have the opportunity to look things up in other ways too. Is that really cheating? I can ask some judicious follow-up questions in a conversation with the kid, and that ultimately gives me the information that I'm looking for, which is, what does the kid know? What can the kid do? So I think it's kind of that balance, that human temptation, because they're kids. Oh, this thing's going to write the essay for me,
of course,
and then just in a kind and caring way, reining that in. Tell me what you meant by this, or wow, that's a really interesting idea. Where have you seen that in practice, or whatever, and just letting them talk about it.
Yeah, like knowing they're going to stretch the boundaries, especially with high schoolers. They're high school students, they're going to try and get away with things they really shouldn't. But understanding that, like, of course they're going to try that. They're high school students. So let me find ways to help acknowledge whether they have or have not done that. Awesome. Well, I wanted to say thank you all so much for being here. I have one last question that I want to do super quickly. This is also one of my favorite parts. So we'll just go around and say our answer. But the question is, if you could choose, what would you be the patron saint of and why? So Gina, let's start with you as the theology teacher. Okay. I'm just kidding. I was looking at you, so that's what I chose.
I'm going to say Thomas Aquinas, because he was really thorough and exhaustive when it comes to playing devil's advocate. Like his contras are from his like literal real life enemies, but then he's like, yeah, but not only that, but also this, and he can come up with better arguments against his own position than even his enemies could. So I'm like, yeah, that's really thorough and exhaustive, and there's no end to what we can exhaust with this, I think, with this information and synthesizing that and pulling from all the sources. So Thomas Aquinas.
That's cool. So being like the patron saint of like the things St. Thomas Aquinas were, or like things similar to that?
I think just the wealth of knowledge. Like if you ask a spiritual director, how can I do like a Bible in a year, but like with the Summa? And they'll be like, how old are you? Because there's no time. You will never be able to finish because there's just so much.
That is so true. I had to read that from one of my courses in college, and I was like, this is a never-ending book. I only read the virtues part, and that took us like an entire course. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, Carrie, you next.
People have already taken this one. If I were going to be the patron saint of something, I would choose to be the patron saint of kindness.
Aww.
Because I think, that's one of those that looks like softness. I think the ability to be kind has a lot of power and can make the world a better place. But St. Francis de Sales and St. Veronica do a better job than I would do in that situation.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, and Anthony.
That's a really great question. I think I would be the patron saint of grace giving.
Ooh.
Having patience and understanding, and allowing folks to we're creating a safe space where people can make mistakes and learn from those.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important, not just for our students, but for our leaders, right? That everyone can learn. There's always teachable moments, right?
Yeah.
Like Francis of Assisi, and just having that wisdom and understanding, patience and kindness, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Particularly as we navigate issues like AI.
For sure.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. That was such a beautiful answer. Super quickly, I always do like a non-serious answer. My non-serious answer this week is this jacket, because the specific jacket that I'm wearing, because one of my coworkers, Jen, who's in our communications team, I was cold and she let me wear her jacket. So I'm grateful. So I would be the patron of this jacket. So I can pay for it when Jen wears it. So that's my answer for this week. But I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for joining us today. It really was such a joy to talk with y'all as educators, as people who are working with and for our Catholic schools, and really being able to talk about AI and how that impacts our students in good ways, and how we can really guide them in using it properly as well. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Catholic Education Arizona. Thank you for all the amazing work you do in our state. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast and for making it possible to come together to talk about these super important topics. If you enjoyed this episode, then please make sure to like, subscribe, follow all of our different social media accounts so that you can get all of the full episodes of Prep Rally, and make sure you check back every month for our latest episode of Prep Rally. Bye, y'all.